What if I told you that the moon hovering up there in our night sky isn't a rock, but a hollow silver utility closet?
Right.
Or that the ancient dinosaurs weren't wiped out by some random asteroid, but actually shape-shifted into the ancestors of billions of people alive today?
It is a lot to take in.
It really is. Usually when someone pitches you a brand new theory of the universe, they just add a new coat of paint to the existing structure. They might tweak a historical date here or, reinterpret a scientific finding there. It's an addition.
Yeah, exactly. A minor adjustment.
Right. But every once in a while, you encounter a framework that says, no, we need to demolish the entire house, clear the foundation, and build a skyscraper out of entirely different materials. And that is exactly what we are looking at today. Welcome to the Deep Dive. We are thrilled to have you with us.
So glad you could join us.
Today, our mission is to unpack a highly detailed, incredibly unconventional, and frankly mind-bending source document that you shared with us by an author named Swifing. It attempts to answer, quite literally, the ultimate question. Where do human beings actually come from?
It is a massive, incredibly ambitious undertaking. And before we get into the specifics, we need to offer a very clear baseline to you, the listener.
Yes, definitely.
The material we are mapping out today is a sprawling blend of theology, alternative history, ufology, and fringe science. We are absolutely not taking sides here.
Not at all.
Right, nor are we endorsing the viewpoints, the science, or the historical claims made by the author. Our goal is strictly to be your impartial guides, reporting on the architecture of this fascinating and intricate cosmology contained in your source material. We are simply exploring the narrative.
Exactly. We're looking at the blueprint of a completely alternate universe.
Okay, let's unpack this because, as I mentioned, the author doesn't just start building his own universe from page 1.
No, he really doesn't. He spends the opening chapters systematically trying to tear down everything we currently accept about human origins. He specifically targets the two biggest heavyweights, scientific evolution and the traditional biblical Genesis. So how exactly does he attempt to clear the board?
Well, he starts by attacking evolution, branding the entire Darwinian model as awkward. The primary argument he constructs hinges on a perceived lack of transitional fossils.
Okay, so like the missing link argument.
Yeah, exactly. And he anchors this entirely to the Cambrian explosion. Now, this was a real event about 530 million years ago, where roughly 90% of animal species seem to appear very suddenly in the fossil record.
Right, just a massive burst of life out of nowhere.
Precisely. And for this author, that sudden burst of complex life is absolute, irrefutable proof against a slow, gradual, random evolutionary process. He argues that things simply appeared fully formed.
But he doesn't just rely on fossils, right? He also brings in some really specific math.
He does, yeah. He points to animal instincts and natural geometry as proof of deliberate, intentional design. A major example he uses is a simple beehive.
Ah, the honeycomb angles.
Right. He notes that the bottom of a honeycomb has an obtuse angle of exactly 109 degrees and 28 minutes, and an acute angle of exactly 70 degrees and 32 minutes.
Wow, that is specific.
Very. The underlying logic here is that this level of perfect economical geometry couldn't just randomly evolve through trial and error. It requires an intelligent mathematician. It requires profound wisdom.
I mean, it's a compelling image.
It is. He even weaponizes Charles Darwin's own words, quoting Darwin, saying that if complex organs couldn't be formed by numerous successive slight modifications, his theory would break down.
I have to push back a little on that logic, though. Dismissing evolution because of gaps in the fossil record feels a bit like walking up to a massive, fully built brick house and arguing that it couldn't possibly have been built brick by brick just because you personally weren't sitting there watching the mason lay each one down.
That's a fair point.
But, putting my skepticism aside, it is a highly effective narrative strategy to clear the deck.
And once he feels he has dismantled Darwin, he pivots and takes aim at traditional religion, specifically the Bible. But he does so using a very clever, logical loophole found right in the book of Genesis.
The Cain and Abel story, right?
Exactly. After Cain kills Abel, he is exiled. And in Genesis, Cain expresses deep terror, saying to God, "Everyone that findeth me shall slay me."
Which, if you think about it, is a glaring question.
It really is.
If Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel were the very first and only humans on the entire planet, who on earth is Cain so terrified of? Who else is out there to find him?
Precisely the point the author makes. He uses this biblical oversight to claim that the Adam and Eve story could not possibly be the origin of all humanity.
Wait, so what is it then?
He argues that the Bible only explains the origin of Middle Eastern people. For Cain to be terrified of other people, there had to be entirely different human populations already thriving out there on Earth.
Okay, so if both Darwin and traditional religion are tossed out the window, what exactly fills the void? If the old foundation is gone, who built the new one?
To answer that, we have to look at the massive cosmic hierarchy this framework introduces. It essentially outlines a literal corporate ladder for the universe.
A corporate ladder. I love that.
Yeah, and it begins with abstract Eastern philosophical concepts. First, there is Wuji. Think of Wuji as a state of absolute, quiet nothingness, the limitless void.
Okay, just pure empty space.
Right. But from that limitless void comes a spark of action or potential called Taiji, the supreme ultimate. It's like the universe waking up from a deep sleep before it actually creates anything. And Taiji ultimately brings forth the greatest creator.
But from what I read, the greatest creator immediately runs into a massive logistical problem.
He does indeed.
The new universe is chaotic. It's expanding infinitely, celestial bodies are flying around in total disorder, and the creator realizes he simply cannot manage it all alone. He needs a management team.
A cosmic middle management team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he starts creating gods. And the mechanism for how he creates these gods is wild.
It really is. The author envisions the creator using his powerful consciousness to literally squeeze regional energy together. Imagine grabbing invisible, chaotic energy and compressing it so intensely that it forms a dense, sentient core.
Wait, so he squeezes energy until it wakes up. What do these gods actually look like?
Here is where the author bridges theology and astrophysics. These high-energy gods, they're literally black holes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the invisible, infinitely dense centers of galaxies that swallow light all are, in this cosmology, sentient middle managers of the universe.
Black holes are gods. That is such a striking, terrifying image. And the framework gets incredibly specific about our neighborhood.
Very specific.
Our specific sector of the universe, which supposedly contains 27 billion solar systems, is co-managed by the two biggest gods, the two biggest black holes, and their names, Jesus and Satan.
What's fascinating here is the synthesis of Eastern philosophy with these very heavy Western religious figures. Jesus and Satan are presented not as ultimate good and ultimate evil, but as a necessary unity of opposites, much like yin and yang. Jesus represents light, weakness, beauty, and the ordinary. Satan represents darkness, strength, ugliness, and the extraordinary. They balance the mechanics of our universe.
But managing 27 billion solar systems requires staff. So the creator makes them a legion of angels. And because Jesus and Satan have vastly contrasting management styles, the angels split into two distinct factions.
Right, they unionize into two groups.
Exactly. The angels who follow Jesus' views are called Buddhas. The angels who follow Satan's views are called celestials, and they are explicitly associated with Chinese Taoism.
And their personalities reflect their cosmic bosses. Buddhas are characterized as peaceful but somewhat arrogant, driven by a desire to excel over others. Celestials, conversely, are described as gentle, pure, and fun-loving. They like to travel, play, and enjoy nature.
If you are listening to this and trying to mentally map out a corporate org chart where Jesus is a black hole managing Taoist angels, I don't blame you if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed.
It is a lot of lore to process.
It is. But let's ground this for a second, because we zoom in from this massive galactic corporate structure directly to our little neighborhood, the forging of the solar system. How exactly did we get here?
In this cosmology, about 4.5 billion years ago, Jesus gets the authorization to lead hundreds of millions of his celestials to engineer the Earth, the Sun, and the other planets. It is a deliberate construction project.
So they're like cosmic contractors.
Basically, yeah. They spent over 2 billion years just designing the math, calculating the rotation speeds, the distances, the ratio of water to air, the vegetation.
But then they run into a massive engineering problem. When they finally introduce animals to this pristine planet, they realize the animals need weather. They need tides, wind, rain, and snow to survive the changing seasons.
Right, the system needs a climate.
Exactly. And to create tides, you need a gravitational pull, you need a moon. So what did the Celestials do to solve this?
They build giant industrial smelters right here on Earth. Specifically near modern-day Cairo, Egypt, and in Atlantis, which is noted as currently resting at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean.
Naturally.
Right. They smelted special earthly metals to manufacture the moon. It is not a natural rock. It is a giant, hollow, rough-surfaced silver ball. a completely manufactured satellite.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I had to laugh when I read this part because it fundamentally turns the moon into a giant celestial utility
The
closet.
utility closet, yes.
Inside this hollow silver moon is a massive warehouse where the Celestials store their construction tools. And those UFOs people claim to see zipping around our skies, they aren't alien spaceships from distant galaxies. They are just the Celestials' tools being deployed from the moon to monitor the Earth.
Just routine maintenance vehicles.
Exactly. They even have a temporary hidden lodge down here to operate them from, located right under the Bermuda Triangle.
It's a perfect example of how the author integrates modern conspiracy theories, UFOs, the Bermuda Triangle, Atlantis, and gives them a highly functional, mundane purpose within his own mythology. It is not magic. It's just cosmic infrastructure.
It is remarkably creative. But if Jesus and his fun-loving celestials just engineered this perfectly balanced, beautiful Earth with its shiny new hollow moon, how does Satan, the cosmic opposite, react to this perfect little terrarium?
With intense, destructive jealousy, Satan sees this beautiful creation and, to assert his own power, sends his faction, the Buddhas, down to Earth about 250 million years ago to actively sabotage it.
Sabotage how?
They create literal pests. Flies, mosquitoes, scorpions, and most dramatically, they design and unleash the dinosaurs. In this worldview, the dinosaurs are biological weapons designed to violently rip apart the Celestials' peaceful green Earth.
A dinosaur sabotage. But the greatest creator sees this happening and gets incredibly angry at the destruction. He decides to wipe out the dinosaurs using a targeted divine plague. He then traps all their aggressive souls in a cosmic prison called the cathode black hole.
And that term cathode is significant. In physics, a cathode is a negative terminal. So this specific black hole is essentially a negative energy sink, a cosmic garbage disposal designed to trap these destructive biological weapons.
That makes perfect sense within this logic.
Though, crucially, a single incredibly smart pair of dinosaurs managed to escape the plague by hiding deep under the East China Sea.
We will definitely be coming back to them. But right now, the Earth is idle, the bioweapons are gone, and the planet needs to be repopulated.
Correct. So about 1.6 million years ago, the creator designs a new prototype human beings. But manufacturing something as biologically complex and spiritually dense as a human requires a massive, sustained amount of cosmic energy. The Celestials can't just snap their fingers.
No, of course not.
They have to build giant laboratories to accumulate and channel that energy.
And where do they put these biological manufacturing plants? Egypt. The laboratories are the pyramids.
Exactly. The pyramids are energy concentrators for human manufacturing. The author claims the Celestials had some early failures creating monkeys and apes, but eventually succeeded in producing 3 distinct groups of humans: Black people in Africa, Native Indians in America, and white people in Europe and North Africa.
And once they were done manufacturing these 3 groups, they packed up their gear and deliberately destroyed the entire area around the labs to prevent Satan from messing with their work again. That scorched earth policy is apparently why the Sahara is a massive, lifeless desert today.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it is masterful how these massive historical and geological mysteries are retrofitted into a continuous narrative. The extinction of the dinosaurs isn't a random asteroid, it's a divine plague to stop cosmic sabotage.
Yeah.
The Sahara isn't a climate shift, it's the result of destroying a biological lab.
It's all tied together.
But as you might notice, there is a massive gap in human populations here. The pyramids only account for 3 racial groups.
Which brings us right back to that logical loophole in the Bible. Where did the Middle Eastern populations come from?
Right. The author explains that 7,000 years ago, a rival god, a completely different manager, not Jesus or Satan, saw the humans on Earth and decided to make his own in a secret garden called Eden. He created Adam and Eve, then immediately destroyed Eden to hide his unauthorized work.
Like a rogue contractor.
Exactly. And that completely answers Cain's fear. He was terrified of being exiled because he knew about the pre-existing humans that the Celestials had manufactured millions of years earlier.
It perfectly closes the loop on the critique of the Bible from the very beginning of our discussion. But the most startling claim in the entire architecture of this cosmology is reserved for the origins of East and Southeast Asian populations.
Oh, this absolutely blew my mind. Remember those 2 smart dinosaurs that escaped the plague and hid under the East China Sea?
How could I forget? The cosmology asserts that 7,500 years ago, they realized humans were thriving on the Earth. So they sneaked out of the sea, shape-shifted into human form, and began propagating along the Yellow River Valley. The framework claims that East and Southeast Asians are literally the descendants of these shape-shifting dinosaurs.
And the author uses this seemingly bizarre origin story to explain profound cultural and religious phenomena. He claims this is exactly why China proudly refers to itself as the hometown of the dragon.
Oh, wow, I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, and it also functions as a biological explanation for the migration and success of world religions, specifically Buddhism.
Right. So consider Sakyamuni the original Buddha. He has this massive spiritual awakening. But in this universe, he isn't discovering a universal truth of enlightenment. He is actually awakening a literal subconscious genetic memory of a lost paradise, an Elysium, from before his ancestors came to Earth as bioweapon dinosaurs.
It's genetic.
Yeah. He tries to take this message to India, but Buddhism fails to take root there. Why?
Because the people in India were designed by the rival god of Eden. They didn't have the genetic memory of Elysium buried in their DNA. It frames religious adherence purely as a matter of biological compatibility.
Fascinating.
Buddhism ultimately thrived in East Asia because those populations instinctually longed for their lost paradise. It resonated with their literal hardware.
It is exactly like different tech companies building totally incompatible operating systems. The humans in India didn't have the hardware to run the Buddhist software because they were built by a totally different creator in a different lab.
That's a great way to put it.
But the Asian humans had the genetic memory of the dinosaurs pre-installed, so the software booted up perfectly. It is a wild analogy, but it makes the internal logic of this universe crystal clear.
And as you can imagine, with multiple human models created by different cosmic factions, using different hardware, running different software, and all forced to share the same planet, things inevitably break down.
I mean, how could they not?
Now, this leads to a history of deep moral decay that requires the greatest creator to step in and perform a global reset.
A few resets, actually. Around 16 million years ago, early humans centered around Maya, ancient Egypt, and Atlantis became incredibly advanced. They basically had the powers of gods and angels.
Right.
But with that power, they became cruel. They were aggressive, greedy, and they started traveling to entirely different dimensions just to cause chaos. So the creator wiped them out, leaving only the less intelligent, less capable humans behind.
To try and incentivize better behavior for the survivors, the creator engineers an afterlife. He builds a literal physical planet 960 light years away called the Thousand-Year World as a reward for a good life. But the incentive doesn't work.
Of course not.
By 4,700 years ago, humans are arrogant again. They prioritize material comfort over spiritual growth, believing they don't need the gods at all.
And meanwhile, the two managing gods, Jesus and Satan, are fighting. The creator has finally had enough. So he physically grabs the earth and tilts its axis. This tilt unleashes massive, violent storms that pour down for 40 days and 40 nights, drowning most of the humans and animals to purge the evil.
This raises an important question about how our actual human mythologies are built. The author points out that survivors of this flood weren't just Noah's family in the Middle East. He cites the Chinese Diyu flood control myth and the incredibly detailed flood legends of the Mandan Native American tribe in North Dakota.
Right, flood stories are everywhere.
As an anthropologist will tell you, global flood myths are very common, likely due to post-ice age sea level rises or localized river valley flooding. But the author ingeniously uses this genuine anthropological phenomenon not as an allegory or a localized disaster, but as literal, physical proof of a universal moral reset initiated by the greatest creator.
It stitches everything together. Which brings us to the end of this incredible document. For you, the listener, we hope this journey has been as fascinating to map out as it was for us to dissect. We are looking at a text of sheer, unadulterated ambition.
Absolutely.
From redefining black holes as sentient cosmic middle managers to turning the Egyptian pyramids into human manufacturing laboratories, all the way to claiming entire Asian populations are descended from shape-shifting dinosaurs who survived a divine plague. Xufeng's framework attempts to stitch every single loose thread of human history, science, missing fossils, and world religion into one massive, unified tapestry.
It really is a marvel of narrative engineering. And we want to reiterate one last time, we are not endorsing these claims as historical or scientific fact.
Definitely not.
The true value here is in examining how alternative cosmologies are constructed, how they attempt to address the very real gaps in mainstream understanding, and how they synthesize completely disparate mysteries into a single cohesive worldview.
So what does this all mean? We started by talking about tearing down a house to build a skyscraper. But I want to leave you with a thought that isn't directly in the source material, something for you to mull over today. Why is the human mind so relentlessly drawn to these grand unifying theories?
That is the big question.
Does our deep desire to connect UFOs, the pyramids, the sudden appearance of dinosaurs, and the world religions into one neat, tidy story speak to a profound psychological need to find absolute order in a terrifyingly chaotic universe? Or is this simply the ultimate, most creative form of human storytelling, proving that our imagination is the true, limitless void? We will let you be the judge.